going to do problems on page 27, and that's section 1.3, and we'll look at 4 first. And we want to find what quadrant it's in, so and it says it's -4, -3, so it's down in this quadrant down here. So if you went it'd be 4 and -3 at someplace down in here. -4, -3. And we're supposed to do the 6 trigonometric functions. So the sine and the angle that we're dealing with is going to be that angle right there, and the rotations here. And so this is theta. So when I say sine of theta, it's going to be the y value over r. So I have to calculate r. And r is equal to the square root, the positive square root of x squared minus 4 y squared plus my y squared. So this is the square root of 16 plus 9, which is equal to 20, square root of 25, and that's going to be 5. So this one is a -3 over 5. And the cosine is going to be x over r, and so that's a -4 over 5. Now the secant is r over x, so that's going to be 5 over -4. Cosecant is r over y, and so that's 5 over -3. Tangent is y over x, and that's a -3 over -4, and that's going to be positive 3 over 4. And then cotangent is x over y, and that's a -4 over -3, and that's going to be 4/3. So the 6 trigonometric functions are there, and it says to rationalize the denominator. Next one I'll look at is 16. And 16, if we're trying to establish what quadrant it's in, it's a -1 square root of 3. So it's going to be up in this quadrant right up here, because that is the place where, and I'm just arbitrarily picking this, a -1 and the square root of 3. So and this side's going to go right through there. The angle is this angle right here. And then I'm going to have to find r, and r equals the square root of x squared. So -1 squared plus y squared square root of 3, the quantity squared. So this is the square root of 1 plus 3, which is the square root of 4, which is 2. So now sine is y over r, and y is the square root of 3, and r is 2. Cosine is x over r, and x is a -1 over 2. Right. And then secant is r over x, which is 2 over minus 1, and that simplifies to minus 2 cosecant is r over y, and that's going to be 2 over the square root of 3. Now we have to rationalize the denominator. Square root of 3 over the square root of 3, and that gives us 2 square root of 3 over 3. And tangent for the angle is y over x, so that's a negative, that's a square root of 3 over negative 1, which is negative square root of 3, and then cotangent is x over y minus 1 over square root of 3. Now we got to rationalize that denominator. Square root of 3 over square root of 3, and that's going to give us negative square root of 3 over 3. So that's the 6 trigonometric functions. Now the next group of problems, it's telling us, it says suppose xy is in the indicated quadrant. Decide whether the given ratio is positive or negative. So I'm going to look at 28. And 28 says you're in quadrant 4 and x over y. So what we do is when we're in quadrant 4, the x value is going to be plus and the y value is negative because this is quadrant 4. So this is supposed to be y. So what this ratio is going to be is it's going to be a plus on the numerator, a negative in the denominator, and that ratio is going to be negative. So that's how you do those problems. You just have to decide where you're at and how the ratio works out. Okay, the next set of problems says terminal side of the angle is at standard position. You have to give the restrictions, sketch the least positive such that for angle theta, find the values of the 6 trigonometric functions. So I'm going to look at 46. Establish now. And I've got 46 says it's 3x plus 5y equals 0, and you're going to go on x's greater than or equal to 0. Now what I do, the way I do these is I get y by itself, so I go 5y equals a minus 3x, and then y equals a negative 3/5 x. So this is the slope, and this equation goes through the origin, and it has a negative slope, so it's going to come down like this, and we're going to be greater the x value, so we're going to be out on this side. So what this has is it has a negative 3/5, so the rise is like a negative 3 and the run is 5 because it's rise over run. Get a rough idea where you'd be at. You could have a point that's out here, 5 and minus 3, put right in there. The whole line would be something I'd go through here, kind of like this. But the part that we're dealing with is the part where x is positive, so this is the one we're on. And if the initial side is here, then that's the angle we have. remember that the slope, it told us that the slope was equal to the tangent of the angle always. So you actually got that one given to you. So let's do, now the easiest way to do this is to take a point where you're out, x is +1, and then y would be a -3/5. So there's a point out here on that line where x is 1, and if x is 1, then y is a -3/5. And then calculate your ratios. Sine is going to be y over r, and r is going to be the square root of 1 squared plus -3/5 squared. Square root 1 plus 9/25. And this is 25 over 25, because I got to get a common denominator. And underneath that radical then, I have 25 plus 9 in the numerator, 34 over 25. So it's the square root of 34, square root of 5 is 25 is 5, and 34 factor somehow to 17. I think that's just what it's going to have to be. So what we do is we go y to the -3/5, and r is the square root of 34 over 5. We invert this thing and multiply the 5's go out, and this is a -3 over square root of 34. We got to rationalize that denominator. Square root of 34, square root of 34. So what that equals, a minus 3 square root of 34 over 34. Okay. Cosine is x over r, and the x is 1, and the r is the square root of 34 over 5. So we just invert the denominator. We rationalize the denominator. And we have 5 square root of 34 over 34. That's cosine. Secant is going to be r over x. So this is going to be, r is the square root of 34 over 5, x is 1. So it's just the square root of 34 over 5. That's secant, cosine, sine, cosecant, is going to be r over y, and r is a square root of 34 over 5, and y is a -3/5. So it's, we invert that denominator and multiply, and that's going to give us, see the 5's go out. It's going to give us a negative square root of 34 over 3. Now we're ready to talk about tangent. Is y over x, and y is a -3/5. and R is, no, X, and X is 1, so this is just a -3. And cotangent is the inverse of this one, so that's a -5/3. So that's what that is. 52. Next problem is going to do x minus y equals 0. And x is greater than or equal to 0. So now for greater than or equal to 0, we're in one of these two quadrants. And then we got to get y by itself, so this is just y equals x. And now that one, if we pick a point where x is 1, then at x is 1, y is 1. Right. Substituting 1 in there. So it's a point right up there. That's a point that satisfies that equation. And then what we are, we're the pin aside right there, and the angle that we're dealing with is right here. And then if we solve for r, it's the square root 1 squared plus 1 squared, which is the square root of 2. Now we just go down through our trig functions. Sine is y over r, which is 1 over the square root of 2. Rationalize the denominator, and that's going to equal the square root of 2 over 2. Now the cosine is x over r, and that's 1 over the square root of 2. And when we rationalize the denominator, we get square root of 2 over 2. If we go secant, that's r over x, and that's going to be the square root of 2 over 1. So that's a square root of 2. And then cosecant is r over y. That's the square root of 2 over 1, which is the square root of 2. And then tangent is y over x. That's just 1 over 1, which is 1. And then cotangent is x over y, 1 over 1, which is 1. So that's how you do those. The next one's talking about quadrantal angles. So that's on your quadrant lines. And then it's just telling you that when you go cotangent squared, you can write it with a bracket. I'm reading the instructions up there. So we can look at 76. And telling us 4 times cosecant 270 plus 3 cosine of 180. All right. So what they do is they refer you back to if you pick the point 1, 1, and then 1, 0. And then you pick the point 0, 1. And this one is a minus 1, 0. And this is 0, minus 1. And those points are on the quadrants. And this one is 90. This one is 180. This one is 270. And then when you go around here, you get 360. So we got 4, and cosecant at 270, the ratio is going to be r over y. Here's 270. And r is going to be 1 because the distance r is 1. So then this one is 3 cosine. And cosine of 180, cosine is going to be x over r. Okay, on the 270, let's see, I'm doing the ratio for 270. That's this one down here. The r is 1, and the y is minus 1. Now I'm going to plus 3, and now I'm going to do for 180, this one. And the x is minus 1, and the r is 1. So what this turns out to be, this is going to be 4 times a negative 1, because minus 1 over minus 1 is that, plus 3, and this is a minus 1. Minus 4 minus 3 is a minus 7. So that's our answer right there. Okay, that's how you're going to do those problems. And here, next one says, n is an integer, n times 180 represents an integer multiple of 180, 2n plus 1 times 90 represents an odd integer multiple. Anytime you take 2 times an integer, you get an even number. You add 1 or subtract 1, you get the odd. It says decide whether each expression is equal to 0, 1, or minus 1. So I'll look at 88. And 88 says tangent of 2n minus 1 times 9. So let's just look at this thing and see where we would be at. 2n minus 1 is an odd number times 90. So an odd number is 1. So if we started out on the initial side here, odd number we'd be at 90. Now the next odd number is 3. If I took 390, I'd get 270. So the next angle I would be at is here. See, because this would be first odd number, 1 times 90. Then this one would be 3 times 90, 270. 4 would get me here, but 5 would get me up here. So the next angle I have is 5 times 90. And that would put me right back up here. And if I went a negative, I'd start out here, go to there, go down. So it would always be either up here or down here. And my tangent is going to be a ratio of y over x. Now, if we take those points, like this point is 0, 1, and the point down here would be 0 minus 1. No matter where we're at, we're either going to be plus or minus 1 in the numerator, but we're always going to be divided by 0. Whenever you divide by 0, you get an undefined number. So this is what you would have as undefined for that situation. Okay, so that's kind of how you figure those out. And that'll be all I'll do for this section.